healthy nutrition should be personalized by ethnicity.
Globalization actually helped for many countries to increase their own voice in international affairs. Nomadic culture is not only about some aspects of traditions and etc. But for me, as international relations theory guy, nomadic culture is all about geostrategic approach on how these local communities see the world. We can see that even the form of government in many Western countries actually was gifted by nomads, especially the line of power and centralization of government. Nomads was kind of like fathers of globalization.
Nomad people were always multilingual. They were polyglots.
Because it was always affected by greater nomadic civilization.
Hello everyone, this is the Jartas podcast, which is dedicated to the World Nomadic Games, 5th World Nomad Games, which is going to be held here in Astana in 8th and 13th of September. And it's me, host, Madi Fazl, as usually. So today we have gathered some special guests and very interesting guests. On the other hand, Arailym Ziyat, head of the scientific program of the 5th World Nomad Games. Welcome, Arailym.
Thank you.
And Miras Zhienbayev, head of foreign policy and international studies program at MIND, Maksud Narikbayev Institute. Miras, it's my pleasure to meet you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Mira Koishubayeva, linguist, cultural scientist, director of the Research Institute of Innovative Education. Mira, thank you for joining us today. So let me just introduce today's topic. Since we've gathered some very interesting guests today, I think the topic of today's discussion will be nomadic heritage and globalization, challenges and opportunities. I truly believe that each of you has something to add on this topic, and truly hope on productive discussion. So I would like to start the first question with our first speaker. Arailym, tell us please, in your personal opinion maybe, and based on your experience, how does globalization after traditional nomadic diets and health, and what kind of contemporary scientific research illuminates these changes? Like, how would you comment on this?
That's a very interesting question, and that will be one of the main topics or discussion of the upcoming conference, which will be held within the program of the World Nomad Games. Because of the globalization and faster travels, like people moving from one continent to another. But however, we shouldn't forget that our DNA and the pattern of our eating doesn't change that fast as we are moving around the world. So there is a popular that now the nutrition and dieting is a hot topic, of course, and that's also the reason why we included to our conference. And we shouldn't forget that depends on where we live, it affects on our diets. Of course, as an example, there is some nations who are lactose tolerant and lactose intolerant. Depends on how much of the dairy product they induce. For example, Japan, they are like centuries, like only recent 50 years, they start using adding the dairy products in their diets, which is still not popular, for example. And for example, talking about the nomadic nations, we are not moving and traveling as usual as we used to, and so we are more like settling type of living now. And of course it affects on our diets. And for example, one of the things which we want to promote, that we should be able not to promote only the cultural heritage, and of course not to forget about our style of eating, because as Kazakhs, we used to eat a lot of the animal products, and for example, comparing to the like consuming the red meat in avocado, of course the red meat will be much more healthier choice for us, comparing like is not to, even though the avocados are making like they are so healthy and like becoming like a superfood, but we always should keep in mind that we should think about our style of diet.
So then
First
you're
of all-
saying that those things about healthy nutrition style and that's becoming really relevant nowadays. Like people keep saying that our ancestors used to have very oily food, that kind of affects the health and so on and so forth. But you were saying that the nutrition, I'd say, behavior itself hasn't changed much. And it shouldn't be changed.
It shouldn't be changed. Yes, if we like, we're talking about the now like personalizing like a medicine and treatment. So like in my opinion, for example, which the style of nutrition, like Mediterranean style of diets is very popular. But for example, like Kazakhstan, where the biggest country which has no access to the sea, so of course the Mediterranean diet will not fit to us. So we should like always keep in mind these kind of things, and which is about us.
Thank you, Arailym. I would like to stop on a next topic. I mean, which kind of connects to one each other. The thing with the economic aspects, maybe of the globalization. Yeah, how hardly changed, how hardly it affected. For our second speaker, Miras, could you tell us, please, how has this globalization itself affected the economic development of modern communities and preserving nomadic heritage, right? So, and what challenges and opportunities we have does it create for us nowadays?
I think it's two different dimensions. Because first, in terms of economy, globalization helped for all of the countries around the world actually to change dramatically. In term of economic models, all of the nomadic countries found its own voice, found its own competitive advantages in terms of the national models of economy, and found the unique products which can be sold to the world.
And what is that exactly in terms of Kazakhstan? Could you like maybe provide some examples?
To the moment, we have to say that it's oil and gas and natural resources. But at the same time, we see how globalization actually helped for many nation ethnicities around the world to change the borders, or to completely to rewrite the borders of their natural cultures. For example, Korean popular culture show us absolutely new model of culture consumption in the world.
Creativity.
So they have asymmetric impact on the world's affairs based on their cultural influence. The same we can see in terms of Kazakhstan, where so many aspects of our economy, so many sectors and segments actually rapidly growing, not only because of Dimash, but in terms of our own creativity, for example, in fashion, in design, in clothing, in jewelry.
Nutrition.
Yeah, nutrition, absolutely. For example, we have horse milk.
Sauma.
Sauma, and camel milk.
Which is being exported,
Which rapidly exporting. For example, we export a lot of meat and food products. It's touching your first topic, but yes, we have a lot to offer to the world in terms of our economic abilities to have economic growth in this country. But in rapid context, we can see that globalization actually helped for many countries to increase their own voice in international affairs.
Yeah.
For example, Kazakhstan is one of the countries with very positive impact on international affairs as very important middle power. We are working very well, especially these years, to stabilize world order.
Yeah.
And overall, that nomadic culture is not only about some aspects of traditions and etc. But for me, as international relations theory guy, nomadic culture is all about geostrategic approach on how these local communities see the world.
So that there is a wider view towards everything that's going on
Yeah,
around
absolutely.
this event, and
all of the nomadic, how can we say it, ethnic groups around the world or nomadic nations has their own unique sense of the world, of the ongoing processes and how this world should work.
Absolutely.
For many centuries, greater nomadic steppes gave a lot of positive approach to for example, to the greater civilization in the West and the East. We can see that even the form of government in many Western countries actually was gifted by nomads, especially the line of power and centralization of government. Even the forms of governments are actually the products of greater nomadic civilization.
Absolutely. Interesting. And you just said about like to taking the models and then adapting them to the local governmental, I don't know, like ruling systems and so on. But I'm also really curious about the belief systems, how I'd say the globalization affected different belief systems, maybe nomadic people shaped their cultural identity and worldview throughout history, and that's true. So maybe Mira, how would you comment on this? In the context of globalization, how does historical beliefs continue to influence their modern adaptation? What do you think about it?
To understand how nomad people's worldview was formed, we should pay attention to one fact that nomad people had the specific peculiarity in to be adaptive.
Flexible, you mean being
flexible? Because to to wander means not only to move from one place to another. It first of all to be adaptive and to have enough experience to respect and to have wisdom. And this feature made people to remember every detail that they met in their way, because it will be useful in future, maybe. Yes. And this feature made them, and this is our heritage, that it influenced every sphere in their life. For example, you asked about beliefs.
Beliefs, yeah.
So, and every belief throughout their history, take Buddhism of Sakas, yes, Tengranism, shamanism, Islam, and so on. Everything was just part of some tapestry nowadays. And we see that we didn't exclude anything. We just pay attention to be respectful towards everything.
Absolutely.
So
And exactly the you're saying that this worldview and then the such behavior of being a nomad people have also affected this different belief systems. You mean? Because I mean, it's just a comment on that. The Islam itself was adapted to our culture throughout years, right?
Yeah, we can see nowadays that we have not only Islamic holidays.
Absolutely.
Yes, we have everything, and we don't differentiate.
People
between
don't
them.
differentiate.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because there was even an interview. I think the pedestrians were asked about if they consider Nowruz as an Islamic holiday.
Many people think
A lot of
nowadays
people
so,
think that it's actually Islamic holiday. So
but we know that in Islam traditions there are no such
Yeah.
holidays.
yeah, that's an interesting.
About the heritage to the conference.
Yeah, that it's not the World Nomad Games is not this time. It's not going to touch upon only the issue of sports, but also the culinary, the nutrition. I don't know.
You mean science?
The science,
Scientific point.
scientific point on. Or maybe Aray, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, just the one thing I would like to mention that the uniqueness of the World Nomad Games is that from the beginning it was always organized in three parts. So it will be sport, culture, and the science.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
I think people should definitely know about it because the vision itself of World Nomad Games is like it's sports and that's it. You know, the limits around the World Nomad Games. So just to break the stereotypes and to break this.
Yes, so like the organizers from the beginning, I think wanted to organize not only the sports event, not only to promote national sports and other aspects of the nomadic life. So of course, like in the fifth games, we will have the big cultural program in Etnaul with gathering artistics and art persons from all over the region and all over the world. And also, of course, there's also always organized in a scientific conference because of the discussing the issues and the points which we would like to discuss in terms of the nomadic culture. So in the previous conferences, they were always discussed about the Turkic nations, history, and Altaistics, heritage, etc. And in this game, in this conference, we are making it much broader to have more points to discuss. And actually, the interesting thing that which has surprised me when we closed our applications form and when we counted the numbers and the percentages of how many from how many countries were interested, and actually we got more application for participation from the foreign countries compared to the Kazakhstan, which was a little bit upset for me personally. But anyway, but it means that the conference is becoming it's becoming great and great in her status of being international scientific conference.
And I bet not only countries with nomadic heritage are being interested in taking part in the event.
Yeah, we were questioned in some of our earlier meetings with other members. We were questioned why we have speakers, for example, from UK or from USA, saying that they are not the nomadic nations, but we're saying that it's the history itself, it's interested with everyone, and it's not like we shouldn't be close to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And of course, it's the effect of the globalizations. The many experts of the Central Asian histories from the US and etc.
Absolutely. And you've pointed to Miras. I think the next question is going to be directed to him. the successful innovations and adaptations that you can probably cite, and maybe that have allowed us to, to be used to create this new economic opportunities for us. Specifically talking about World Nomad Games, in your opinion, what kind of opportunities we have in the future?
Coming back to World Nomadic Games, it's an excellent way to promote something and all we have. For example, we already mentioned that it's not only about the sports, it's also about the culture, nutrition,
Absolutely.
and many things. There is a book called Lost Enlightenment about Central Asian space, written by a very prominent American professor, Professor Frederick Starr. For example, Al-Biruni, Al-Farabi, and many prominent thinkers who are still very famous are representing this particular region. So Central Asian space and wider nomadic civilization was one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Let's call it that nomads was kind of like fathers of globalization, because when we have a lot of settled civilizations all around the world and all around Eurasia, only one power was the driver to exchange something. And still we have this type of approach on our common history and common culture. To the moment we are working on creating new opportunities for our creative economy.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you noted the fact that a nomadic culture was the, let's say, the nomads themselves. They were the first people who brought this culture of exchange. Yeah, I mean, experience, exchange, and so on and so forth. It's interesting that nowadays we have the same thing as called digital nomadism. Yeah, absolutely. And then people are being ascets on a higher level. So it's interesting to note that also. Mira, I have one more question to you, dedicated to your professional sphere as being a linguist. Tell us more about the multilingualism, like it's being crucial for nomadic peoples, yeah? And how does this historical multilingualism contribute to their engagement with today's globalized world, in your opinion?
Well, as we mentioned, beliefs, and the same situation is with multilingualism, because nomad people were always multilingual. They were polyglots. And of course, you remember was such a philosopher, Mahmoud Kashgari. Yes, he was founder of aerial linguistics, because he gathered all the languages and dialectal diversity of languages among all the Turk peoples. and wrote in a linguistic encyclopedia. So it was 11th century already. It means that nomad peoples knew all these languages. And it was obligatory, because they wanted to respect each other, to show that they respect, and that was why it was important. And example of this we can see in our language, Bala Shagha, Ömer Bayan, and so forth. When two roots of different languages, they just combine together. Pay attention to this fact that they don't replace one word by another. But he wanted to make and to create such a situation when everybody would understand him. So again, I mean, this specific feature is well differentiate everything.
Yeah. So that is something that stands out in a language. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
amazing. And what do you think particularly about the globalization
Well,
issues?
and I think that is our heritage. That nowadays we still prefer to be multilingual. I don't remember, and I won't say, but there are some countries where exactly they didn't want to speak with you in your language or in English even, right? But every foreign or tourist, yeah, they came and they are free here because we try to be and to speak with them in their languages. I think it's our heritage, and for globalization, it is the main part.
That's basically you're saying that Kazakh people are keen to learn foreign languages, and then they have
Absolutely.
And
interesting.
actually, about the multilingualism, it is known fact that it's been studied by scientists that the brain structure change is different from the monolingual and bilingual.
Absolutely.
Bilingual. I think it was on children research, and actually because of course, the globalization, there is basically is less and less people who are only monolingual, and at least now there's only not bilingual. They're making more like a trilingual. They're moving to even more languages to learn. So even like we are developing, even changing our brain structure.
That's interesting. I think even here, like gathering at this podcast, since it's been held in 3 languages, like it shows our hospitality, the level of our hospitality, that everyone who's willing to know a little bit more about the World Nomad Games can just Google and see that there is an information in Kazakh, Russian, English, and then watch the podcast, enjoy it, and so on.
And I always joke about that in airports of Kazakhstan, there's the longest announcement because they always make it in Kazakh, in Russian, and in English. Because in other countries, they will always do it in their own language, and they will never even, if you're lucky, they can repeat it in English, but they mostly they don't bother.
Yeah, absolutely, that's true. I have one more question to Miras. I think this is also about your sphere, like precisely about international institutions and organizations that support the preservation of nomadic heritage and its role in cultural events such as the World Nomad Games. What kind of successful international projects or maybe programs are you aware of, like that have contributed into this?
I expected to have this type of question because I wrote a book on international of liberal
That's why we're
institutionalism last
asking.
year. In terms of preserving any type of cultural diversity, we have a very wide range of international organizations and institutions, for example, Alliance of Civilizations within United Nations, UNESCO, and many countries around the world have their own regional international organizations. Like, for example, we also established the World Nomadic Games within this format. So it's not under the umbrella of the UN or any other international body. What we started doing ourselves. So different countries, especially in our region, actually work very well in terms of international cooperation in this sphere. For example, it's not very easy to understand what really is that nomadic culture because everything is very mixed. How many of our Kazakh traditions came from Islam? How many of them came from Mongol Empire or Saks or Guns? Maybe from our nomadic heritage, or was born during our settled period of time. How many of them or which of them? It's not easy to find out the list, and it's not easy to create this methodology. But anyway, the country of our region found this type of model to create the World Nomadic Games. We are very happy to host it for the first time in Kazakhstan.
Which can actually help us to differentiate, right? I mean, to understand what is the background to each tradition, to each kind of sport, and so on.
Yeah, but in paradox, at the same time, we expect, when we're talking about nomads, we expect to have, some particular list of countries. But you already said about that, that for these nomadic games, we have so many international guests or sportsmen who would like to attend. For example, I was very excited to know that our Japanese friends also plans to attend.
Yeah,
in some type of sports. But it's absolutely interesting part of this game. So we've
that'll be interesting to observe as well.
Finally, here during the World Nomadic Games in Kazakhstan, we will finally understand that the greater nomadic civilization is much broader and bigger than we ever expected before.
An interesting thing that mentioning two things I would like to mention, that you mentioned the new UNESCO. So UNESCO's branch of Intangible Cultural Heritage Office from Korea. Actually, the interesting that the South Korea is showing like a very big interest in the World Nomad Game. So the UNESCO office, they are making a special session about the archery as a common cooperation point between the nomadic countries. But the Koreans, they are not nomadics, but they are still supporting this like our nomadic
But
heritage.
archery itself is pretty developed in South Korea.
Yeah, so it's like interesting. And the second thing, which is I know that Korean athletes in judo, they are now learning how to they're learning the Kazakh wrestling type.
The
so
rules,
The
right?
techniques.
techniques, so they could come and participate in World Nomad Games. So there is like that big level of interest, even from like Asian countries.
Miras, I have one more question to you and maybe to all of you to share your opinion on where World Nomad Games are actually going. I mean, do we have any potential to export this on a level of Olympic Games as from the economical perspective, or maybe some, I don't know, PR, like to the better view of our country, for example, in the world area, like, I mean, worldwide. How would you comment on this? What would be your opinion?
As for me, it's all up to us. So how can we use this opportunity to transform this format? For example, for the first time, we have so many participating countries and so many athletes, sportsmen, academicians, and the rest of our colleagues who work in different fields of science.
Yeah.
For the first time, we start to think that this space is much bigger than we ever expected. We see that the fantastic ability of our country maybe also came from our nomadic heritage to absorb the best practices in the world, is actually help us to have the third World Nomadic Games in absolutely fantastic model of organizations, all the processes, PR, and the rest of these things. Olympic Games was founded many centuries ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, is it possible for us to I'd say maybe reinvent or maybe to have this?
Well, but between Olympic Games and Nomad Games, definitely the difference is that Nomad Games is the trinity of science, culture, and sports. It's not just sports. I like to compare it, for example, with simulation. Nowadays, yes, we can, for example, we can create any computer games, with VR glasses and physical
AI.
activity sensors and so on. Yes, and you will feel everything, but Nomad games will give you another feeling. Not just sports, but the feeling of your spirit, of the growth of your spirit,
Okay.
and the расширение, expansion of your spirit and the joy of it when another person feels the same.
Yeah, I think it's this very special feeling of unity.
Exactly.
For example, yes, we have our national prince like that, but and you know they came to this current form transformed by our unique history, culture, etc.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some of the other nomadic ethnic groups have almost the same prince. Why? Because they also have it the same many centuries ago. So in this regard, when you understand that many practices, many traditions, even the language norms and cultural norms, which we actually share in common, it gave you a very unique sense of unity
Absolutely.
with the greater civilization.
And talking about giving the like national sports, promoting them to a worldwide level. For example, there is a great work is started and going still with the Kazakh Kursi Federation. So they are working very hard on making
Kazakh wrestling, right?
Kazakh wrestling, to promoting it and including into Olympic list of the sports. And actually, and the second biggest topic of the conference will be discussion of the national sports, because, for example, there are some rules. Is an example of Kokbar and Kokburu. They are similar games, but with slightly different changes. So, like standardizations of rules, first of all, and secondly, promoting of the safety of the athlete participating, and of course the welfare of the horses.
Animal, yeah.
Yes, so that's the first points which should be
Taken into account, yeah.
take into account and discussed with a broader audience, and with a bigger with the participation of the scientists from different countries. So we would discuss it. We will have an agreement in standardizing. That will be the first point to moving forward, because, for example, there is no like a safety rules for the horses, and for example for baige, which is the horse racing, Kazakh national horse racing, and there is a no limits of mostly the jockeys are the kids, and they can be from age of starting from 5 to 12. But we should be concerned about it. So it's not about only a winning and the profits. It's first of all the health and safety of the child, and then the horse, and
Absolutely.
then it should be about the sports itself. So the issues not we're not, if we want to play it on the worldwide level, we should solve and standardize these things, which is very great concern of our association of national sports, which will be they will be mostly responsible for this section of the conference.
Yeah, it's great to hear that some steps are being done already.
Yeah, so
towards-
we're moving forward, and there is of course the little steps, but at least we're starting the job, discussing it in a higher stage, and raising questions on specifically on a scientific conferences, international conferences, will give it a more higher level and importance, showing its importance.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about the international cultural exchanges, maybe in regards to the World Nomad Games? Maybe, as you just said, the South Korea is really interested in taking part into the World Nomad Games as though they're not nomads historically. What kind of initiatives maybe have been most successful in this context from other countries, from other maybe international friends and colleagues? Miras, would you add something on that?
In modern world, it's not easy to understand what really we take to exchange, because
As due
we
to
have
the
we have many
globalization.
things
Yeah.
we have many things in common. But at the same time, it's very good way to promote our identity and to understand that not only, for example, Kazakhs or Central Asians share the same identity, but the broader context of nations and countries around the globe. Korean example, or example of Japanese athletes who would like to participate, is a sign that of something we consider very daily routine in this part of the world is actually still attractive for many countries, sharing, having absolutely another model of society, or another model of statehood. For example, who was never been nomadic, but at the same time, for example, even Korean wrestling actually is very much looks like Kazakh one.
Yeah.
And all of the national wrestlings actually looks almost
More
the
or
same.
less.
More or less the same. You know, we are not too much into the sports, but anyway, especially for me, everything looks almost the same. But still, we have the very good opportunity to create the bigger family of nomadic countries, or the countries who who share the same identity and feelings, because nomadic heritage is not only about traditional sports and institutions, but it's also about sharing identity, finding common grounds, very open-minded approach to the world and the major shifts we have in this world. For example, globalization is actually a product of the last 80 years. So, for example, 1 century ago, it wasn't even possible to learn that, for example, here in I don't know where, maybe in Soviet Union or in China, we have in this type of game, or maybe somewhere else in Korea or in the United States. But to the moment, we can check everything in our phone.
Absolutely.
So everything is online, everything is accessible, everything is more than accessible, because it's many gigabytes of information is all around us 24/7.
Yeah.
In this case, we understand that all of these benefits we have from globalization in these decades, in recent decades.
There's no borders anymore.
There is no borders, and we can influence the world by our uniqueness, by our open-minded approach on everything. And actually, coming back to my own field, to balance world order, especially in this divided time, when we can say that it's diplomacy of divided world, finding something in common and remembering that we have shared, our common history for not only for some regions, but in border of greater Eurasian space. It's very important attention for us and very important step for us to go beyond all of the confrontation we have in international affairs now, to start the dialogue.
Yeah, I think World Nomad Games itself, it's more about looking up to the similarities rather than differences. I'm saying about the standardization process and everything. I mean, everyone has their own approach towards a certain game, but here they're going to play by the same rules. You know what I'm saying? So it also inspires a lot. And watching about just your referring to what you just said about South Korea being interested, looking their historical dramas, I wonder sometimes that how come they're not nomads, sometimes kind of pops up in my head also, this kind of ideas.
Because
Maybe
it was always affected by greater nomadic civilization. They were always, I mean, there was no any way to be not affected by greater nomadic civilization.
absolutely.
Because it was the only way to exchange something.
Mira, would you comment on this, as it's your professional field?
Playing games, especially to be interested in the nomad games, for younger generation is the connection with physical reality, because you can feel as your ancestors felt and did.
Thank you, dear guests, for sharing your thoughts and opinions on globalization issues and its effect on the current realities. It was me with you, as usually, Madi Fazl, and the podcast of Jartas. Thank you for watching us.